Hi, I'm Calli from Callicious Cakes, and today we're going to be learning how to paint this beautiful tiger with cocoa butter. So some of the techniques we're going to be using today, how I use the cocoa butter, the colours that we use, how I mix the colours, and that sort of thing. So I hope you enjoy what I'm going to be showing you today. In this lesson, I've printed off my tiger that I'm going to be painting, and I am going to just do a quick trace off the tiger. So just tape it down over your picture and just mark the areas, you know, just very, very quickly, you know, just so you've got points of where everything is on the tiger, the eyes, where the black stripes are, the ears, some of the highlights and the whiskers and things like that. And once you've done that, okay, you've then got a clean image like that. And here is my 8-inch board, which is just a thin cake board, of which I've just rolled over some sugar paste and left it to dry for a couple of days. I then transfer the tiger, tracing onto there, tape everything back on again, hold it down so it doesn't move, like that, like that. And then I'm going to take a cell stick. You can use a Dresden tool or anything that's got a nice sort of firmish point. And then you're just going to go reasonably firmly, not too firmly. Remember, this is sugar paste. And just transfer that image onto your plaque. And the reason why we're doing this as a kind of a shortcut really is the emphasis here is about painting, not about the drawing. If we were to do a drawing lesson as well, that would take a lot longer, and that's another lesson for another day, drawing. But feel free, if you want to rather just freehand your drawing on, you know, using your photo or whatever your reference point is, and doing it that way. But I just find this way is a lot quicker, because really we just want to get painting, don't we? Right, so once you've done all of that, I've got one here prepared already. That's what you're looking at, okay? So there we have our tiger ready to paint. And in the next lesson, I'm going to show you how you mix your colours and how to melt the cocoa butter. Right, onto the painting part, which is the part that we really want to get involved in. I'm going to be using cocoa butter, which is a very forgiving medium, I find, to use. It's completely edible. This is the one that I use, which is Choc Chic. Choc Chic, yes. And there are other brands available on the market. I know Squires do one. I've used theirs actually. It's also very, very nice. But I tend to stick with this one. It comes in big chunks, which look like that. And what I do is I just shave it down, so I've got all these little chip pieces and that. And then what I do is I just basically just put it over a burner. Let me talk about the burner first. So I'm using an aroma burner, because it's going to be staying hot for as long as possible. I'm also using a metal palette. The metal palette, because it's metal, clearly, it's going to hold the heat longer. The other way of doing it, of course, is to take your palette and have it over a bowl of hot water. If you are going to be using this method, just make sure that if you leave the room, that you blow the candle out, especially if you've got a family with small children and things like that. You don't want to be leaving this burning. So if you're not working, please blow out the candle before you leave the room. So what I'm going to do with the, and of course I'm using the metal because the metal holds the heat for longer. So what I'm going to do is I shave all these little pieces off, and then I just pop them in there like that into all the little compartments like that, and I put a whole dollop in the middle because I use the middle for extra mixing and for mixing my cleaning my brushes. So as you can see, it's already starting to melt. I already have one here next to me that has already melted like that. There we go. And there you can see it's now completely liquid. So now we need to turn that into colour. So the colours that I'm going to be using are a mix of egg yellow and buttermilk. I'm also using tangerine, woodland green, primrose, autumn gold, brown, white, spring green, a little bit of aubergine here and there, black, and a little bit of red as well. These are all edible colours. There are blossom dusts, and this particular make are sugar flare, but the other brands work just as well. AmeriColor, if you're buying products from America or other parts of the world, whatever your local brands are, they will all work using this medium with the cocoa butter. Then with the brushes, I use a whole kind of mishmash of brushes. When I tend to do this kind of work, I tend to go for your kind of flat brushes. If I'm doing very fine work, I work with a 5/0 brush with a nice tip, and maybe a 2. So I'm not working with very big brushes today, but you'll see when we get further on some of these different brushes I'm using, and I will talk about the brush as I'm using it. So right, so let's get the colours mixed in. So I'm just going to mix the buttermilk and the egg yellow together. So a little bit like that. You can see it's all getting absorbed very nicely in there. Like that. There we go. Not much of the egg yellow. They're all going to look very samey, these colours, but you'd be amazed how different they really are. It's quite subtle. So I'm just putting some tangerine in there. Right, and then we're going to use some spring green. I think I'll do it in this one. Like that. I'm going to use a bit of the woodland a bit later. With some primrose. Like so. Autumn gold. Out you come. There you go. Right. Autumn gold. Some brown. Just going to put the brown in. Oh, what's this one, I think. I tend to, where I've got the most cocoa butter melted, is any colours that I know I'm going to use the most of, is where I will put most of my colour in. So there is a fair amount of white on the tiger, and there's a fair amount of black. And the white is also used for highlights as well. So in goes the black. The colours look very different once they've been mixed into the cocoa butter. And a little bit of red. So, but then again, once you start painting, you'll see how different they look. Oh yes, the woodland green. There's the other green there, like so. Okay, so I'm just going to just take one of my little brushes here. No, I won't. Actually, I'm just going to take my cell stick, and I'm just going to, okay, so you can see this one here. I haven't got quite enough cocoa butter in, so all you have to do is just add a few more chips and just let it melt on top of that, and it'll all be fine. Just going to clean my... Right, so as you can see, I'm just mixing all my colours in there. So there's the red. Sorry, I'm just clean it off. Mixing in the green. I'm just going to leave the others as they are. Right. Yes, you need to have lots of kitchen towel with you because you're going to be using it quite a lot to wipe your brushes off. Okay, so we're all ready to go now. So we've got our colours ready to go, our paintbrushes are ready, our plaques ready, and in the next lesson we're going to get started on putting down your first layer of basic colour. Right, we're going to start painting now, which is always the most exciting part, putting colour down. Right, so here's my palette, all my colours are mixed. If you look here, I've actually put a little dish in the middle, which I've melted some cocoa butter in, because when you're working with a cocoa butter and you're using the same brush over and over, it does tend to congeal around the edges there, and it can get a bit globular. So I regularly like to dip my brush in there, like that, into the moisture part, and then you just take your kitchen towel and give it a good wipe, and you've got a nice clean brush again. Right, okay, so I'm going to start with the background, and I'm going to be using a little bit of the spring green, and just, it's really just to create a bit of a background. I'm just going to stick a bit of white in there, like that, a little bit of yellow, kind of just dabbing into all the different palettes there. Just going to put the other one here, because really the focus is going to be on this beautiful creature's face. So I'm just creating an evergreeny type of background. As you can see, it's the paint actually, it's very forgiving. It kind of goes with whatever you want it to do. So, let's put a bit of woodland green in there. So, right, so really all I'm doing now is I'm just putting down basic colour. You're going to see how this will change as we progress. So that's your the start of your basic colour, okay? Bit of a wipe, dip in, another wipe, your brush is clean again. This is a nice brush to use for doing this kind of background work. They come in different sizes as well. Obviously, the bigger you work, the bigger your brush is as well. When you've finished working with the brushes, all you have to do is just give them a wash with some dishwashing liquid and some warm water, and they're as good as new, and they don't damage at all. I was asked this question once before, if cocoa butter and the heat damages the brushes. No, it doesn't, and I use both Teflon and sable hair brushes, so and my brushes are fine, and I'm very fussy about my brushes. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do, I'm just going to take a different brush like that, which is quite a blunt one, because I'm going to now work with some of the stripe work, and I'm going to actually start with the black. Okay, just going to put all those stripes in. So I'm just going to do this very roughly. Okay, so it won't look like anything at the moment. So I'm just popping all those in like that, even where the ears are in here. Just put a bit of white in there. Like so. And if it gets too dry, you can even put a bit of cocoa butter in there, and it helps to spread the paint around a bit more. Okay, blend that in a little bit. Keep your reference near you. I've got mine on my iPad, or you can print off the photograph and work from a photograph, whichever works easiest for you. But I like the resolution on the iPad, that's why I use it. So, right, so let's get some more of this blacking going on in here. Like so. See, you can actually, this is a lovely brush for feathering. You can kind of get some nice little furry feathering effects. Same in here. So where I've kind of roughly penciled in those black stripes, that's basically what I'm doing. As you can see, it's just very rough what I'm doing. So. If I go a bit quieter because I'm concentrating. There, a little bit of softness there. 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 Okay, and of course the ears. Like so. I know this all looks very rough and ready at the moment, but you'll see it does all start to come to life eventually. Oops. And it doesn't matter if you kind of make mistakes, by the way. It is, as I say, very forgiving. You can scrape it off or paint over it if it's dry. Once the cocoa butter is dry, you can actually go over it again, but don't go over it too often, otherwise it does get a bit globby looking on your artwork. So try and keep it simple. Right, I'm just going to go on to the next colour. The other thing is, when you're working with cocoa butter, is to work from left to right or right to left, depending. As you can see, I'm left-handed, so if I was painting this way, I would work from right to left. If you're right-handed, you work from left to right, because cocoa butter is butter, therefore it will smudge. So if you're going to touch it, the warmth of your hand is actually going to melt it. So to demonstrate, you know, like if I do that, which is also quite useful because you can use your finger to smudge the paint around, but as you can see, it comes off. So try and work like that, or you know, you can actually take some kitchen towel, as well, and kind of work like that. And work down, so you're not actually touching your work or smudging it. But as I say, if you do smudge it, it's easily corrected. Right, I'm going to start some of the orange and the tans colours now. So I'm just going to go into here. Oops. Cleaning off my brush again. I mean, I could use another brush for each colour, but it's popping them up and down. I tend to just stay with the same brush. Right, okay. Okay, so let's get some of these lovely earthy colours going. He's got going in his fur. Here we go. So when you're painting as well, and what you're painting from, observe the lights and shades and where they all are. You know, like there I can see there's a little bit of a light area there, so I'm just going to just stick in a bit of the white there and just blend that in like that. So what we are going to do eventually, once we finish putting all our basic colours down, is blending the dark into the light, or into the browns and tans, and then vice versa back in again. And that's how you kind of create that fur effect. See, like that, so give you an idea. Okay. this in there. Right, I'm going to take some of this buttermilk colour now. Right, I'm just going to give my one brush a clean, and just to get some refreshed with some more kitchen roll. Okay, so I've got all my fresh kitchen towels again. So I'm going to continue now putting in all my flat colours where all my base colours are going to be. So your darks, your lights, the tans, the oranges, not too much of the white areas. I'm going to try and use as much of the white that's already there available. So once I've got all of that, then I'll be back to start showing you how to go on to the next step, which is start adding more detail in. Okay. So as you can see, there's quite a lot of marks and stripes and things being put in, and some of the tiger's colours, and the colours that I'm kind of mixing together is, if you look at my palette, you can see that I don't just use that colour, then that colour, then that colour. I tend to chop and change until I get the right tone that I want. See there, I'm just putting a bit of the tangerine in there with a little bit of the brown, like that, just to get some more of that golden colour going on in the inside, like that. Okay. And then on the outside, there are paler areas as well, the tiger. So there, I just kind of take a very similar colour, add a little bit of the white in there. So this is your the buff colour and the primrose yellow mixed with a little bit of white, just to bring in, because that's a bit yellow there. I've made that a bit too yellow. But as you can see, once it's dry, you can just paint straight over it. And try and keep your paint not too thick. And of course, the longer you're working with it on your board, this is going to start to dry out, and you can see it starts to congeal, and all you have to do is you just put it back into the cocoa butter, and it just brings it back to life again, and it's nice and supple to use again. So, right. Just putting in some of these. The tiger's got these lighter areas there that's a bit too yellow still, so let's just use a little bit of this is the autumn gold brown colour that I'm using. A little bit of the white in there, like that. And where are we now? Yeah, so we're around about here. There we go. There we go, like so. This is quite sort of more like a burnt orange coming down his nose here. So I've mixed a bit of the tangerine in with a bit of the brown and a little bit of the autumn gold, which is really like a sienna colour. So if you've got colours that are closer to sienna, that's kind of the colours that you're looking to use. Here as well, we've got some golden going on in here. A bit more of the orange, not too much. There we go. Again, we're just going to go a little bit lighter again. See how you can get these little flecks going in there and start getting that kind of fur effect. That's in there. Down we go. Yeah. Leaving some of the white bits. Detail here. So I'm just going to finish off carrying on with my basic colours, and as I say, just don't forget to just mix your palette. If you think it's, you know, if you're looking at your artwork and looking to see where all the shadows are, you just adapt your palette accordingly. And I tend to mix on the side, so a little bit of brown, it's too dark, add a bit of the autumn in there, a bit of the orange in there, so that's where you're going into more of your shadow areas. So like there we go, see? Because some of his, it's not all black, there are some kind of burnt brown, golden bits in there as well. So I'm just going to finish putting the basic colours down, just around here, his face, and then we're going to come back and we're going to work on the eyes, because those are pretty important, the eyes. So there's quite a lot I'd like to tell you about the eyes. So we'll come back to that later. I'm just going to finish this around there and then we'll come back to the eyes. Right, back we are again. And we're now going to work on the eyes. So this is such a small area, but it is so important, because let's face it, when we look at animals, when animals look at us, when we look at each other, what is the first thing we look at? We look at the eyes, because the eyes kind of almost tell the character of the person, or the expression of the person, maybe not the character, but certainly the expression of the person, how they're feeling, what kind of mood they're in, especially with the tiger, well, you know. So we want to capture the wonderful piercing stare that the tiger has. So in this lesson I'm just going to show you how I capture the light and the shade in the eyes. Okay, so I'm going to be starting with the yellow, which is the primrose yellow. Was it the primrose? Yeah, primrose yellow. And I'm just going to block it round there, like that, and I'm doing that in both of them. Okay, and I've made the paint very thin. You don't want to have it too thick. Keep it as thin as you can. And the reason being is you're going to be sort of building up colour on top of colour, and you don't want it to get too thick, because then you kind of lose that nice translucency of the eyes. Like that, okay. And I'm using a sable hairbrush. This is a 0 brush that I'm using with a nice point. Okay, because I've got a bit more control, because we're working in quite a small area here. Right, okay, then the next colour I'm going to use is a little bit of the orange. Now, this part where the eyebrows are, well, it's not really the eyebrows, but it's like part of the eyebrows, is quite hooded. So what you need to do is create shadow under the hooded area, and that's what I'm doing now. So I'm basically going to build up this part here, like so. Come down there a little bit. And the same thing underneath. And this also creates, don't worry about if you go out of the lines, because that's all going to get covered up in a minute. Like that. So I'm just going to put that across in there. And like so. Same thing here. Give it a very defined line across there. A little bit around there as well. So. All right, then what I'm going to do now, okay, let's just look at this. I'm going to be looking at this eye. And I am just, it's quite pale around the center of the eye. It's not too pale, so I'm just going to make it almost a little bit grey. So, no, that's probably a bit too dark. bit lighter, there we go. A bit lighter there. So, and the same thing with the other eye. Got too much paint on there, just to take some of that off. And you kind of just wiggle your brush around. You can put a bit of cocoa butter on there, take off the excess, and just kind of spread that and blend it in. Okay. I'm now going to start outlining. Okay, this requires a bit of a steady hand. So to steady your hand, I'm used to kind of working with a brush, but I tend to, sometimes I will hold my hand like that, keep it in control, or you can sort of hold it like that. Put this at the angle, which is the easiest for you. I'm left-handed, so I'm working this way. If you're right-handed, then you'd probably want to tilt it and do it this way. But I tend to find it's easier to work with a brush going away from me as opposed towards me. You might find it easier to work with it anyway. Whichever is the easiest for you to control your brush is the way you hold it. So I'm going to now do this line, so we're just basically going to go across and around. A bit more, not too much on the end of your brush, just enough to take you around, like so. Like so, that's one eye. Make that a bit rounder, like so. And we're just going to put this little dot there. So you see he's starting to come to life now, isn't he? And this is quite a dark area here. It's not all dark, so we're just going to put some there. I'm just going to go like that and use the brush and just feather it very slightly, like that. Hair is very fine there, so, and it's going straight onto white, so you don't want to be fiddling with this area too much. It's going around there. Like so. I'm going to blend that in a minute. I'm going to put another colour in there in a minute. Okay, and then we're just going to go where this part is here. It comes a bit thicker there, because we're actually going to be going into this area here. Just kind of feather it off. When you come towards the end, when we start putting in a bit of the detail, then we'll refine that sort of feathering fur-like effect. But the tiger has quite a large area of darkness around his eye. So, like so. Okay, then I'm just going to clean my brush off a little bit, and I'm just going to take a fraction of white there, because there is this very faint rim. I know it seems very subtle, but you'll be amazed that it does actually make a difference. And there. Can you see it's starting to come to life now? Alright, now I'm going to put a little bit more shadow in the eyes again. So I'm just going to go into the autumn gold, or the sienna, whichever colour you want to call it, and put in another layer. I'm going to start deepening all this area here. And around here, oopsie daisy. You don't want that, so I've just clean the brush, just blend that in. There we go. Bit of whiteness around the eyes. So maybe that's a bit too much. Let's just put a bit of this in there. Creamy effect. So a bit more of the tangerine or orange. Yeah. I'm going back into the autumn gold again. It is quite a thing building up these colours. Oops. Hold on. Right. There. Probably come back to it a little bit when it's dried a little bit. I'm just going to put a bit more of this colour in there. Just adding a bit of this cream buff colour into the primrose. It's a bit too yellow. His eyes. Oh, still is. And maybe a bit of the tangerine in there again. It's all about trying to create reflection as well and shadow, so it is quite a process. Right, and now I'm going to just clean my brush tip, and I'm going to go back and use a bit of white and the black, create a very soft grey. Go around the eye like that. Bring it out to there. And then I'm taking pure white and I'm just going to put in reflections that I can see in his eyes. And the pure white helps to bring that out. Around here, around there, and around there. Here we go. Now we're going to do the other eye. Same process. Actually, before I go to the other eye, let me just finish this part off here. There. That. Just very fine feathering. Make sure that the tip of your brush, I'm even taking excess off there, make sure the tip of your brush is nice and pointed. You don't have to fuss with this too much. And that's going to go into there like that. I think he needs a bit more across here. Where are we? Right here. Okay, so it's up there. Across there, a bit more there, and down. He's going to have some whiskers coming down there later. It's just, but it comes in over the dark. So that's it for now on that eye. So I'm going to repeat the whole process on the other eye, doing exactly the same as what I've done there. Putting in the shadows and the reflections, and then when we've done that, I'm going to go back to the top of the tiger and start putting in some details like the ears and putting some hairs in the ears and things like that, okay? Right, okay, so here we have two eyes staring at me, and So what we're going to do now is we will eventually come back to those eyes and start putting in a little bit more detail. We're just going to leave them like that for now. But we're going to go back up to the top. So what we're going to do now is I'm just going to put some kind of fur effects, loose hair in the ears and things like that there, and just start kind of putting a little bit more detail in here. We're not going to put too much detail around here because it's kind of in the background, which means it's not really too much in focus. So, and I tend to keep it away because really we want to keep the focus in the forefront and not in the foreground. So, so really what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to take my blunt brush again and into the black it goes. Not too much on your brush. You want to keep it reasonably, what they call like dry brush. You know, I mean, you can even dab it on there, but you don't want to dab it too much because then it'll be too dry. And then I'm just going to basically, I'm going to kind of feather it, if you know what I mean, to create sort of a fur effect. So I'm going to go outwards, and then when that's dry, then I will take some of these other colours and feed it back into the black. So by sort of cross furring in like that, it tends to kind of look like it's fur, you know, because it's overlapping each other. So you've got black going into the tan colours and the tan and the white going into the black and so on and so forth. Because that's what fur is. It blends in from one colour into another. So I've been talking too much. My brush has gone dry. Okay, so that's what I'm going to do. So it's just very gentle, very little paint on your brush. And I'm just going to do that. Okay. Just flick, 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 flick. Probably get some darker areas in here. Like that. There we go. Flick that in like that. Same thing here. It's kind of doesn't all have to be too even because there are long bits and short bits. Like that. And the ears, of course, are all fuzzy. He's quite a youngish tiger, this one. So we'll give him a little bit more fuzz on the edge there, shall we? Like so. And let's do the same thing here. Let's feed it up there and long bits and short bits, and not too much there because we're going to feed this lighter colour into the black, so we want it to be quite directional. And also when you look at the fur, look at the direction the fur is going in, and then work with your brush strokes going in the same direction as the fur. Okay. So like so. So you can see it's starting to have a smoother I know that there are all kinds of ways that people use in techniques in painting, and obviously everybody's got their own style with regards to how to get fur effects or any effects, really, textures and things. So, but this is what I'm sort of finding works for me for this one, to create that illusion, really. Like so. Right, then I'm just going to take another brush the same as this blunt one, which is here. There it is. I'm just going to, because it's gone hard sitting down there, so I'm just going to melt it in the cocoa butter, wipe off the excess. I've got it all nice and clean again. And I'm going to use some of the lighter colour. Take a bit of the white there. So I've used a bit of the white, a bit of the orange, a bit of the gold, brown, golden brown here. Okay, so we're going to kind of start feeding in, so you can go back, in and out into that lighter area. Same thing here. Probably need a bit more on my brush. You see how I turn, because I like to work away from myself. I feel I've got more control of the brush. Okay, push some of this in. Maybe just a dash of white here and there. That's because there are all kinds of tones running through as the light catches the fur. Okay, here as well. Just going to make that a bit thicker like that, and then flick it out. I'm going to show you something a bit later on, how you can take this to another level as well. It's all about how far do you want to take it, you know, with regards to detail and knowing when to stop. So, I hope you can see how I'm now starting to create the fur. Right, so that's, I'm going to continue to do that pretty much all the way around there and here. But the next step I'm just going to show you is just how I create that on the inside there. So I'm just going to just take that off, and I'm going to use a zero brush again, and I'm just going to go into the white, and I'm just going to be very random with this and just kind of create in a very directional way. With not too much paint on your brush, which means you have to keep refilling your, or reloading the brushes, they say. Create this. Got some little hairs traveling from that direction. Nice fluffy ears. Okay. It's up to you how much you want to show there, but by doing it like that, you maintain the shadow behind, which creates the fact that the hair is in the forefront and the hollow of the ears is where it's dark. Some areas there's quite a lot of hair. In bunches, so like that. Oopsie daisy. Bit of directional stuff going on here. Right. So I'm now going to finish doing that. I'm going to do the same thing as I've done in there, in the other ear, and where I've been feathering in here with my other brush. I'm just going to continue that all the way around there and into there, and then I'll be back for the next lesson of sort of creating this colour here, because it is slightly different colour. It's much darker and it's more solid here, so it's just creating the shadows and things around the nose up to that point. So I'll be back a little bit later on. Okay, so I've now completed the other ear, done a little bit of the feathering. We're still going to come back and, believe it or not, do a little bit more much later on, but that's really towards the end when we start putting finishing touches and bit of highlights here and shadows, so we'll talk about that later. So right now we're going to do this nose area here, and I'm going to do it so that we kind of are following the direction of the animal's nose, kind of how the hair moves around this kind of area here, and create some shadows on the side here, you know, so you can create the two-dimensional parts of the nose, and it's quite interesting because you've got different colors coming into the nose as well, and obviously you've got the long hair going on here. This is all very short hair across the nose. Okay, so I'm actually going to start by using my golden autumn gold brown, and I'm going to use my broad brush, and I'm just basically going to just come in and just, in fact that's quite dry, so I'm just going to add a bit of cocoa butter on there. Just thin it down and get all my colours in like that. And again, just try and keep your brush directional. All there. And it doesn't matter if you've got other darker bits coming in there, because there is quite a lot of light and shade and textures going on in the nose. Okay. So, just want to keep a little white bit there because it's the white bit on the end of his nose. Okay, so, and the fur kind of like tufts up almost. So I'm just going to do this like that. So where are we now? So he's got some white bits here. So I'm just going to do that. I'm just going to go and put some orange into the brown, a bit of the darker brown, because we're going into this part of the nose where there's a lot of shadow. Dark there. There. And again, I'm just putting all my flat colour down again in this area, here as well. Like that. I'm just going to put a bit more of the orange in there. And here. And again, I'm keeping my paint very, very light on the brush for the moment. So he's got white around the eye, so we don't want to go into there. Okay, I'm just going to go into a little bit into the lighter colour here. Brown maybe. So it's quite a browny beige around this area here. There we go. So and again, study your subject, your photograph, whatever you're doing, and look right in at the colours. You'd be amazed how many colours you see within colours. Okay. Okay. Let's get some, put some orange and brown together. Make it nice and warm. Maybe put a bit of that in there as well. There we go. Not too much on the brush again, and I'm moving it in here. And yeah, let's just do that. There. Back to here again. there. It's all very flat at the moment, but like we did before, I'll start putting just a little bit more detail. There won't be too much detail going on in this section here because it's short hair. It's really just creating the light and shade of the snout. And you can use your finger to blend as well. I forgot to tell you that, but yeah, finger's great for blending, but you need to do it while it's still reasonably wet. I mean, you can do it when it's dry as well, but it does work better when it's a bit wet. Okay, I'm just going to just make a little bit brown and start just flecking in like that. So it's a darker brown again. So let's see, I've got some dark areas here. Still not dark enough. Okay. Blend that in like that. And I'm going to go less golden, so it's more of a umber kind of colour, and just come into here. As you can see, we know the pencil marks that I've put in there are guidelines, because you tend to go over them and make the painting your own, really. They're just there as guidelines. Right, so I'm just going to just do some white around here. Again, this is just very rough at the moment. Okay, and then I'm just going to take a little bit of this red, a little bit of the white, because we're going to do his nose. I'm just going to put a little tiny bit of this mixed yellow in there, so it's not quite baby pink. It's a tiger after all. It's not really baby pink. So I'm just going to put this part in here. I'm just going to switch brushes. I think it'd be easier to use one with a better definition, a pointy end. So, like that. Right, then we need to start putting in some dark bits. So when we go there, like that. Starting to take effect now. There. Oh, let's just cover a little bit up here. Nearly there. Right, I'm just going to let that dry a little bit, and then we're going to come back to it later, okay? Okay, so we've just let this dry a little bit, and I'm just now going to go over it and around here, and we're going to do some of this here. So I'm just going to put some detail in here now. So I'm using this tan brown again, the autumn gold, a little bit of the actual brown, a little bit of the black. Maybe put a bit more brown in there. Okay, so let's just go in here. Again, just shaping the face. That's a bit dark actually, so I'm just going to wipe some of that off. Go in there. See how that is. A lot of this thing when you're mixing with colours is all trial and error, and as I say, the beauty is you can just wipe off and start again if you need to. I'm going to blend with my finger here. Put a bit more shadow in here, less on my brush. Maybe a bit more of the cocoa butter on my brush. So it's almost like watercolor consistency now. There we go. And I'm just using that feathering technique just to blend the shading in there. Just keep some of those highlights in there. And a little bit of the black here. So let's see now, that comes around here. There. Down here a little bit. I think I made this a bit dark, but I think it'll be okay. Let me just use it. I'm just going to lighten this a little bit around here. I'm probably just being a bit pernickety here, but okay. A bit more of this. It's quite, there's areas of this tiger that's not all kind of orange and black stripes and white. You know, there's some kind of quite sort of non-warm colours, especially I've noticed around the nose. And the sides of the face, especially as you're leading into the mouth. So there. It's a bit lighter around here. It's little bursts of warm colours coming in here. So where are we now? So yeah, so that bit under the eyes is actually going to be white fur. And again, I'm just building up some flat colour around here, which we're going to go back and put some detail in. Okay, same thing here. There. Let's move that out there. Okay. I'm just going to take my design enough. I'm just going to scrape off some of this colour. This is something else that you can do as well. Just be very careful how you do it. You don't want to scrape off the sugar paste. Just don't think I've kind of got that area quite right, so I'm just going to restart it. So, which is what you do, just take that off. And then I've got this brush here, which I just remove very lightly any excess like that. So, okay, I'm going to do that a little bit again, because that's quite light inside that corner. I've brought too much shadow over So I'm just correcting it. So as I say, you know, there's, again, I know I've said it earlier, I've said it a couple of times, but it is a lovely medium to work with because it is very forgiving. So, you know, it's not a disaster if you make a mistake. You can correct your mistakes. Some might say, is art ever a mistake? Because it's all about interpretation, isn't it? Really? There's some lightness coming in here. Just putting a bit of white and yellow together there. Maybe a bit more golden. Blend that in there. And here. Some of the darker brown. A bit of the orange mixed in with the darker brown. Like that. There we go. Just trying to get that spot over the nose sorted. Okay, I'm just going to use some black. Get some spots and dots going in here. And under the eyes. Right. Just over here we've got some black going on here. So I'm doing pretty much what we did at the beginning. I'm starting to build up more areas of the face using block colour. Which I'll go over with later to do some more feathering style techniques. There. Right, I'm just going to go around this nose now. Let's just start getting some details around the nose. So we just got this. It's quite interesting, the tiger. It's got some very, very strong contrasts in the design of the features. You need to keep this part pretty accurate. You don't want to give him a distorted looking face. So, there we go. And same thing here. Oops. Okay. That. Right, I'm just going to put this black here. Where are we now? So around the nose. There. got some dark areas coming in here. A little bit around here. Around here. I'm going to be going over that with white fur in a bit. So that can go up there. Okay, getting there. I'm just going to create some very light shadow. It's around the muzzle area. It's mainly white, but the shadow, it does create a kind of a grey effect. You don't want it too dark because it is white after all, but like that. A little bit down here. Around here. Around there. Just going to get some whites going in there. Just going to clean my brush off. Just want to get some white on the brush. Just blend some of that. Oh, hang on. Okay, where were we? Oh yes. So. Okay. Add a bit more grey, I think. Some of these, a few little spotty bits here and there. It matters really where you put them. These kind of things you don't have to put exactly in the same spot as they are on the photograph, because it's just to create the effect of the kind of markings that they have in this area, because each tiger will be different and have different markings on it. Okay, let's just get some of this going in here. This is where all the whiskers are going to come out later. Okay, so just bear with me, I'm just checking my size there. Okay, just going to put a bit more darkness around these areas here. I'm going to use brown with just a little bit of black in it. That's about all the darkness you need there. This needs to be darker as well. And then down into some more darkness there. Here. Okay, then, so as you can see, I've been using this pretty much the same technique all the way through with this kind of fur and putting the different tones of the fur, the white and the black and the orangey colour, to give it that layered effect. Okay, so what I'm going to do here now is we've got up to there. So what I'm going to be doing now is I'm now going to be doing the same thing as we've done up at the top here, putting on your block colour, and I'm just going to be doing that around here. So I'm just going to get that started, all right, and then we'll come back and start putting the detail in. So I'm just going to put the these colours here just across into there, and then we'll be back, and then I'll show you how I'm going to shadow it from there. Okay. Right, so as you can see, I've just taken the colours that we've used here and just blank, and I've kept the paws very loose because, again, it's keeping the emphasis here, but it's also nice to see little bits of the rest of the body. So, you know, I'm going to keep this very loose, not too detailed. It's just really an indication of where the paws are. So it's almost like a camera that's focused on just one aspect, and then the rest kind of blurs a little bit, which is kind of the effect I'm sort of creating here. So, so there's just some shadows here. I'm just going over the shadows again, but I've done the same colours as before on the paws, and I've just put in some groundwork here where the leg is coming across and around. And again, not spending too much time on that because okay, I'll do something detail in there in a minute. So it's all, there's no detail here yet, but you'll see the detail in a minute. Come in here. Okay, so I'm just going to feather out a little bit here. I'm just going to create a bit more grey because it's the whites and shadow again, so I just want to shadow there. There. And my brush again. This part needs to come out a bit more around here. And okay. Brown there. Leave some white bits there. Let's get some more of the orange tone coming in here. And again, just building up the shades. And again, if you work with the cocoa butter quite thin, you can work with it like watercolor, so you can actually put the color down, put another thin layer on top of that, and it will actually go a tone darker, you know. And also, if you're wanting to have color coming through color, you can do the same thing where you've got your flat tone like that. So there's your base color and it's all dry. I'm just going to do a quick demonstration here. And then if you were to take a very thin layer of the dark green, start going over the top. Needs to be watered down a bit more. See, you can actually start to work the colour so that the undercolour is coming through as well. Oops. So, anyway, there we go. Just deepening the shadows between the paws here. There. So, it's funny this using the finger, which a lot of people do. When I was at art school, and art school wasn't really learning about painting so much, it was more about graphics. Painting is something that really only came much later for me. It was it was an art school for basically advertising and graphics and photography and that kind of thing. But when we did have the odd kind of in first year where we learnt about paints as such and working with paints, it was frowned upon to use your finger. You had to actually create everything with the brush, and it was considered to be cheating to use your finger, which of course we know it's not, but it was back then. But I suppose it was all about training you to maximize as much skill as possible just using the brush on its own. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to, as you can see, I've just been putting all the base colour in there. What I'm going to do now quickly is I'm just going to take a broader brush and I'm going to go back into this green, and I'm just going to create some dark here. And I'm using what you call like a crosshatch. So I'm just dabbing into the white as well. I just want to finish doing the background because that hair, the fur, is actually going to be needing to come into that, so I need that to be dry, so I just want to get that all done. So, and there, make that dark. Put other tones in here. Just put the yellow in there. So it looks like there's a bit of sunshine peeping through or something. It's just a bit random, really. Oops. I'm probably fiddling more than I need to. But anyway, at least you can see what you can do with the colour, how you just keep on moving it around. But keep your paint quite thin on the brush. Okay. Right, I'm just going to let that dry and we'll come back to that in a bit. Okay. I'm going to put, I'm going to continue now. What I was showing you up here earlier with this feathering, I'm just going to continue a little bit with that further down here, and down here, and down here. Exactly the same as what I was doing before, so I'm going to be pulling the black like this. Just to refresh your memory, so like there. Okay, that's a bit wet there still, so I'm going to be bringing the black into there, like that. Just blend it in here and there, longer bits and shorter bits, like that. So I'm just going to continue doing that around there and around there, and bringing the white into there, and then we can go to the next step, which is putting more detail in. Right, okay, so I've, as you can see, I've just been adding some feathery bits there and bringing the white into the black, and again here, sort of white highlights, and taking this part of the fur and bringing it out into the background, doing there. I'm still going to carry on doing that just now, just, you know, so basically just taking these, hold on a second. I've just got white on my brush now, okay? So you can just kind of, just here and there, just bring it out some more. And if you wanted to make that a bit darker, the shadows underneath the white, you can do that too, by simply just bringing the colour straight back in again from underneath the fur, if you know what I mean. So it just helps to, oops, it's not quite the right colour, is it really? It's looking a bit pink, like that. So, but and again, just keep the paint quite thin on your brush. So you're going to do that all the way around, and then just here and there, sort of around the black areas, there are wonderful golden tones. So like there, and you can just wash it in just here and there. I'm just going to thin that down a little bit, so it really is just, it's almost like forming a halo around it here and there, and it just helps to sort of bring some nice tones in, and like that. Same thing in there, just here and there, like that. Just subtle, nothing kind of major, like that. So, because what it's doing is just pulling in the colours from the rest of the tiger, and almost creates kind of reflections in the fur. Okay, so this is the part where you're going to start doing some detailing. And detailing is really about putting in highlights, putting in shadows where you think you need shadows, because by doing that it creates more and more your realistic effect, your more three-dimensional effect. And it's one of those things where, do I stop at this point, or how far do I want to go with the detailing? And that is entirely up to you, because at the end of the day, it's your interpretation, and so it's up to you how loose you want it. Some people like me, I like to work tight. I try very hard not to work too tight, which I find hard, because I just keep going. But then, you know, you can still have a wonderful effect of just getting the essence of the tiger by just putting in all your colours without going too crazy on the detail, and you get a completely different effect, but you're still getting the beauty of the animal as well. But as I say, you know, each artist has their own way of interpreting things, and I'm sure you will put your own stamp on something like this. You put maybe, you know, a different style of brushwork in there, maybe some different colours you might want to add in there. And anyway, it's the beauty about art is it's all about self-expression and your eye on what you see, and it's your interpretation. So with detailing, there's lots of things that you can do. So you can carry on with your brushwork, like I showed you earlier, putting on all the little fine lines and the feathering. We haven't done the whiskers yet, and there are several ways you can do the whiskers. So one of them is to, I'm just going to show you one, because I really do the whiskers last. And you don't, tiger's got lots and lots and lots of whiskers, but you're not going to sit there and individually put in every single one. You just need to create the fact that it's got whiskers. So, and I just, again, just take a very thin brush into the white, and one clean line, and like that. Hang on, let's get some more paint on my brush. And you've got little ones and short ones. But really all you're just doing is, and they've got some around the eyes, so this is where you start to get a bit more of the shadow coming through. So just put one or two, don't go too mad. You just want to kind of create an illusion. So because they have these kind of whiskers going over the top of their eyes. Same thing here. Just going to bring in something like that, like there. See, so it just kind of gives it a more hooded look Just going to put a bit of highlight in here. And this is the part you could just fiddle away and play nicely. So like that there, see? And immediately it's amazing, just a little dot here and a little dot there, and what a difference it makes, really. Same thing here. This helps to create a bit of a shine on the nose. Like so. There's a few more little details here. I've put some highlights in there. So, and that's what good. Yeah. So that's the kind of thing you can do the whiskers. Now, there's another thing that you can do. If you've got the patience to do it, it is laborious, but it can be effective. And that's taking a scribing needle. Okay, whichever one you've got. There are different types on the market. And you can feather and put like that. See, you're actually going to scratch into the paint like that. See, like so. You can do long ones, short ones. You can, oops, let's do that. Okay, so you're going to get bits of, where's my brush? There it is. So just brush off all the bits coming off. And the same thing in the ears as well. If you wanted to put, just be very careful how you go into the paint. Because it kind of, all it does is, it's if you've ever used a scraper board, it's the same kind of effect. It's just basically just taking the paint off. You know, you can put some highlights in here even, you know. Same thing here. Oops. I'm going to put some white in here just now. But you can do the white and then go over it again. And it's also, you can do the whiskers as well. So, like there, see? There, like so. So where there's white there, so you can bring some of this white back into the black, so if you wanted that to look finer. Same thing here. Okay, so I'm just going to just do what I've just shown you now and just play here and there. So there you see it as it is now, and then we're going to come back and I'm just going to point out the areas that I've done that, which is what I'm showing you now. So it's like here, if you want this to soften a little bit, it's a bit hard, just kind of do that. There we go, let's get some of this white fur feeding into the black there. Long ones. So, can even do something around the eyes here. And here as well. Anyway, I think you can see the kind of thing I'm getting at here. Right, so we'll be back in a bit and I'm going to show you the finer things that I've just done, because this is the point where you're as good as finished really, but it's just taking it a little bit further if you wanted to see what else you can do with that. Okay, great. Okay, we're actually finished. Well, as finished as you can be at this point in time, and as I said earlier, it's entirely up to you how you want to finish it. So I basically scribed in, see, I'm still at it. Sort of the details in the white. I've used a black brush just to feather in a little bit more where the stripes are. I've also added a little bit of grey just to shadow around. I've added some of the autumnal colour just around some of the black areas, just to cast a kind of a translucency. It does help to create a translucency because you're bringing in the colour of the tiger into certain of the other areas, but obviously you want to keep the white there. But this is as good as finished. It is finished, one should say. But when I say as good as finished, is because you can just keep on going, scribing, feathering to your heart's content. So, right, a few things that you need to know about cocoa butter that I didn't mention at the beginning, but I'll mention now, is cocoa butter, emphasis on the word butter, which means that anything to do with heat, as you've seen here, it is going to respond to the heat straight away. Our hands are warm, and if you touch it, it's going to come away. I think I did mention it, but I'm mentioning it again now anyway. So it does smudge. I've tried spraying over with, your edible varnishes and things like that. That doesn't work, okay? So all you do when you're working with this, that's why it's really nice. If you're doing a cake where you're going to illustrate the top, like this for instance, you could then do it on a plaque, and then you just insert it on top of the cake afterwards. If you're going to paint directly onto a cake, then just make sure that you're working from left to right or right to left, so that you are never going to be near where you've painted. So you just finish off as you go all the way around your cake. That way you're not going to sort of smudge it or anything like that. It is completely edible. It doesn't have any flavour at all. It smells lovely. It's like being in the beach in here, you know. It smells like your cocoa butter lotion. But it is an actual cocoa butter that you use for making modelling chocolate. So that's that really. And again, once you've finished, just make sure that you blow out your candle, and jobs are good. And and I hope you've learned something through the painting experience that I've showed you, and how I work with cocoa butter. And good luck and enjoy. In this lesson, I've printed off my tiger that I'm going to be painting, and I am going to just do a quick trace off the tiger. So just tape it down over your picture and just mark the areas, just very, very quickly, just so you've got points of where everything is on the tiger, the eyes, where the black stripes are, the ears, some of the highlights and the whiskers and things like that. And once you've done that, okay, you've then got a clean image like that. And here is my 8-inch board, which is just a thin cake board, of which I've just rolled over some sugar paste and left it to dry for a couple of days. I then transfer the tiger, tracing onto there, tape everything back on again, hold it down so it doesn't move, like that, like that. And then I'm going to take a cell stick. You can use a Dresden tool or anything that's got a nice sort of firmish point. And then you're just going to go reasonably firmly, not too firmly. Remember, this is sugar paste. And just transfer that image onto your plaque. What I'm going to do with the, and of course I'm using the metal because the metal holds the heat for longer. So what I'm going to do is I shave all these little pieces off, and then I just pop them in there like that into all the little compartments. The colours that I'm going to be using are a mix of egg yellow and buttermilk. I'm also using tangerine, woodland green, primrose, autumn gold, brown, white, spring green, a little bit of aubergine here and there, black, and a little bit of red as well. They will all work using this medium with the cocoa butter. Then with the brushes, I use a whole kind of mishmash of brushes. When I tend to do this kind of work, I tend to go for your kind of flat brushes. If I'm doing very fine work, I work with a 5-0 brush with a nice tip, and maybe a 2. So I'm not working with very big brushes today, but you'll see when we get further on, some of these different brushes I'm using, and I will talk about the brush as I'm using it. Right, we're going to start painting now, which is always the most exciting part, putting colour down. Right, so here's my palette. All my colours are mixed. If you look here, I've actually put a little dish in the middle, which I've melted some cocoa butter in, because when you're working with the cocoa butter and you're using the same brush over and over, it does tend to congeal around the edges there, and it can get a bit globular. So I regularly like to dip my brush in there like that into the moisture part, and then you just take your kitchen towel and give it a good wipe, and you've got a nice clean brush again. Okay, just going to put all those stripes in. So I'm just going to do this very roughly. Okay, so it won't look like anything at the moment, so I'm just popping all those in like that, even where the ears are in here. Just put a bit of white in there. Like so. So if you're going to touch it, the warmth of your hand is actually going to melt it. So to demonstrate, you know, like if I do that, which is also quite useful because you can use your finger to smudge the paint around, but as you can see, it comes off. So try and work like that, or you know, you can actually take some kitchen towel, as well, and kind of work like that, and work down, so you're not actually touching your work. The colours that I'm kind of mixing together is, if you look at my palette, you can see that I don't just use that colour, then that colour, then that colour. I tend to chop and change until I get the right tone that I want. See there, I'm just putting a bit of the tangerine in there with a little bit of the brown, like that, just to get some more of that golden colour going on in the inside, like that. Because some of his, it's not all black, there are some kind of burnt brown, golden bits in there as well. Right, back we are again. And we're now going to work on the eyes. So this is such a small area, but it is so important. Okay. And I've made the paint very thin. You don't want to have it too thick. Keep it as thin as you can. And the reason being is you're going to be sort of building up colour on top of colour, and you don't want it to get too thick. So come down there a little bit. And the same thing underneath. And this also creates, don't worry about if you go out of the lines, because that's all going to get covered up in a minute. Like that. So I'm just going to put that across in there. Put too much paint on there, just to take some of that off. And you kind of just wiggle your brush around. You can put a bit of cocoa butter on there, take off the excess, and just kind of spread that and blend it in. Okay, put some there. I'm just going to go like that and use the brush and just feather it very slightly, like that. Its hair is very fine there, so, and it's going straight onto white, so you don't want to be fiddling with this area too much. Maybe that's a bit too much. Let's just put a bit of this in there. Creamy effect. So, a bit more of the tangerine or orange. It's all about trying to create reflection as well, and shadow, so it is quite a process. Right, okay, so here we have two eyes staring at me. And so what we're going to do now is we will eventually come back to those eyes and start putting in a little bit more detail. We're just going to leave them like that for now. But we're going to go back up to the top. So what we're going to do now is I'm just going to put some kind of fur effects, loose hair in the ears and things like that there. So So you can see it's starting to have a smoother. So I hope you can see how I'm now starting to create the fur. Right, so I'm going to continue to do that pretty much all the way around there and here. Okay. It's up to you how much you want to show there, but by doing it like that, you maintain the shadow behind, which creates the fact that the hair is in the forefront and the hollow of the ears is where it's dark. So where are we now? So he's got some white bits here. So I'm just going to do that. I'm just going to go and put some orange into the brown, a bit of the darker brown, because we're going into this part of the nose where there's a lot of shadow. Like that. Okay, so I'm just going to feather out a little bit here. I'm just going to create a bit more grey because it's the whites and shadow again, so I just want to but anyway, at least you can see what you can do with the colour, how you just keep on moving it around, but keep your paint quite thin on the brush. Just be very careful how you go into the paint, because it kind of all it does is it's if you've ever used a scraper board, it's the same kind of effect. It's just basically just taking the paint off. Again, you know, once you've finished, just make sure that you blow out your candle, and jobs are good. And you know, and I hope you've learned something through the painting experience that I've showed you, and how I work with cocoa butter. And good luck and enjoy.